Hey everyone, it is Kevin Henry, editor-in-chief for drbicuspid.com. Welcome into this podcast that is sponsored by Garfield Refining. Thrilled to have in a dear friend of mine and a great thought leader in our dental industry out there, and that is Ashley Bond with Wisdom. Hey Ashley, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much, Kevin, for having me on.
I always love hanging out with you, whether it's at a football game or online, or at a dental meeting, wherever that is. And we're going to talk about an article that you wrote for Dr. Bicuspid and dig in a little bit deeper in that. But before we do, I absolutely want people to know a little bit more about you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I started in my father's practice. And so I was able to see a lot of the pains that he went through as a business owner in a dental practice, but then also the side as an office manager and the headaches that I went through specifically with revenue cycle management, dental insurance, turnover. So in 2019, started and founded Bond Dental Billing. And now have evolved to Wisdom. So we are a new era of dental billing, helping practices all over the country with their revenue cycle management.
Whenever you first came into the industry, what dare I say, a breath of fresh air it was. Not only have you in there, but your way of thinking. And it's so cool to see where your business and you have gone in those, gosh, what, 6 years now? That's crazy.
I know it seems like it's been a lifetime, but it's gone so quick. So it's because of the people like you around me that have been so supportive that we are now where we are today.
You're going to learn a little bit more about wisdom toward the end, as well as a couple of things that Ashley has. But I want to get to this article that you wrote for Dr. Bicuspid because it got a lot of eyeballs. I'm just going to tell you that. It was titled Unlocking Revenue Potential, How Your Dental Team Can Master RCM, Revenue Cycle Management. And we're going to link to that if you're reading this on Dr. Bicuspid, it's in the article. If you're listening to this on Dr. Bicuspid, well, it's in the show notes. So, Ashley, one of the cool things that you did in here is you broke down revenue cycle management for each member of the dental team. And I love that you did it that way. Why? Why does each team member need to know about RCM?
I think in the dental practice, it is the assumption that revenue cycle management is really the front office position. It's their job and responsibility, which is true. They do carry the heavy load of RCM, but really, when you dig in, it is the entire team that has key responsibilities to make sure that our doctors are getting paid 100% of what they're producing. So I love that, empowering every team member in the dental office that, hey, you do have a part in the most crucial part of running a practice beyond the treatment is making sure you're getting paid for that treatment. So it was really neat to be able to break it down and explain how every team member can be a crucial part of revenue cycle management and help the doctor and the office collect what they're producing.
And let's be perfectly honest, in this article, you didn't leave the doctor out. You
No,
you
I
said
didn't.
that he or she was a key part of that too. And I love that you mentioned the documentation side of
Mm,
things because I think so often that's pushed off. It's not done properly. There's a lot of things where the doctor could maybe up his or her game to really play that key part in RCM.
absolutely. The doctors, I titled them, they are the leaders in this
Yeah.
clinical documentation. And, running a dental billing company, I can tell you the hardest part of our job is having the documentation to get the claims paid on time. So that is the number one thing that stops us from doing our job really well. So empowering the doctors that documentation is so important. It is so crucial and making sure, especially with our clinical notes, that is one of the biggest areas where I could see some improvement in our industry where it's detailed clinical notes. A lot of insurance companies are even requesting clinical notes. They're not wanting those narratives, those stock narratives that back in the day we would just copy paste the same narrative for every patient. That's not what we need to provide now. We need to provide the clinical notes that show the details on why was that crown done. It's not just because of decay. It's, required because of mesial, buccal decay, recurrent caries. We need to get into the detail and the specifics so that, for one, to protect our licenses as clinicians, but then also to help get paid by the insurance companies as well.
I want you to either help me debunk a myth or help me boost it up? I'm not sure which
Okay.
one, so I'm curious to see what you're going to say here because I have heard AI is going to help with documentation. AI is going to kind of take that off the doctor or assistant's shoulders. True or not true?
So I think I am pro AI, especially in dentistry. I think if anything, it can help supplement what we're doing. I don't think AI will ever be a complete replacement. But even, ChatGPT, I am using ChatGPT every single day in what I'm doing. Specifically with appeals, I think ChatGPT can be extremely helpful. You just have to be careful knowing that insurance companies know when you use a robot, so don't have make sure you say don't sound like a robot. But it is, I think it is a big help. So you can use ChatGPT to even help create your templates. Every doctor should be using templates in their practice management software. So depending on what the code is, whatever treatment you do, it's going to walk you through the documentation that's needing to be presented in the clinical notes. If you do not have your templates set up, step one, get really in-depth templates set up for your documentation. And if you need help on how to structure those, I am all for using AI to help with a template. And then you need to make sure to, of course, put the patient specifics in there.
I love you mentioned ChatGPT because I know a lot of my authors are using ChatGPT not to write their articles, at least I tell them not to, but to get the creative juices flowing, shall we
Yes,
say. And yeah, so never a bad thing at all.
absolutely.
Let's touch on a member of the team that you know is near and dear to my heart, and those are the assistants.
Yes.
So, what role do you see them playing in that documentation side
Mhm.
of things? How much do they need to be poking their doc to remind him or her about what's going on in that field?
Yeah, the dental assistants, they really are the backbone. So they're the backbone to clinical efficiency. I want every dental assistant to feel like they're empowered and a leader in their position. How this can be done and what I saw personally in my father's practice is, when he's in the middle of treatment, so say he's in a crown prep, we use dental dams. His number one goal was get that off as quickly as possible. So he was not focusing on, okay, during the procedure, maybe we need to pause, take an intraoral photo. Or before the procedure, do we need to verify that we have all the documentation needed before we prep this crown? So do we have the x-rays that show the entire tooth structure? Do we have PAs that are going to show below the root? Dental assistants need to be the person checking that out for the dentist because the dentist really needs to get in there, focus on the treatment. I want the dental assistant to make sure, okay, do we have our pre-op x-rays? Do we have our post-op x-rays? Do we have in the middle of our prep photos when you're doing a
Mhm.
crown specifically, if there's a buildup, make sure you pause the doctor to take those photos. And just check for completeness of that you have all the necessary attachments. We do have a cheat sheet guide on the necessary claim attachments for each code. And I think it's so important to have training in the practice that everybody knows, not just the front office knows what attachments are needed for insurance, but that the hygienists know, the doctor knows, the assistants know, and then regularly train on that, for crowns. We need to have pre, post op, middle, intraoral photos. What kind of clinical notes do we need to submit? If it's a replacement crown, we need to have the initial placement date. So the assistant needs to lead that and asking the patient, how old is this crown? So there is, I think, a lot of training that we can do as a team for RCM specifically, and then check in every so often on what claims are getting denied. If your office should be talking about your denied claims, so we can get to the root issue of, hey, we have all these appeals or we have this denial because our SRP, we don't have our FMSs. So really diagnosing and not just letting the same denials go in and out of the dental practice.
I am so thankful you mentioned the training side of
Mm-hmm.
things because we have so many new team members that are coming into dental and we're worried about infection control. We're worried about the
Mm-hmm.
clinical side of things, all these different things. And I think so often we overlook the business training side of
Right.
things. So I'm really glad you're emphasizing that.
And I think too with that, the front office team members, because they're the gatekeepers of dental billing. So typically if they're coming in, they know about, gathering the patient details, insurance details when they come, what to send off with claims. So I think empowering the front office team members to kind of be the leaders of that training and, pulling the group together and making sure that the the doctors, the hygienists, and the dental assistants, they know what's going on. I would love if offices too talk about their insurance AR numbers together. Let's see what's going on because it's not just the front office team member responsible for our insurance agent numbers or our patient collection numbers or our collection percentage. So I would love to review that and then as a team decide, hey, if we see our numbers are going up, like what can we do as a team together and not just fully put it on only the front office team members to be monitoring and looking at those numbers.
You're reading my mind, or you've got my show notes here in front of you, because that was the next thing I was going to talk to you about was you and I have both heard, and you've probably witnessed the whole front versus back side of things,
Yes.
and how people don't see what the other side is doing. This seems like a golden opportunity to break down one of those walls.
Yes. And I was lucky in our practice so we didn't have as much the front and back because my sister was a hygienist. So we had a built-in love for each other. So easy, we collaborated really well together, but I know that's not always the case, that it can be sometimes an us versus them. And that's where I think, building a great culture in the practice, I think can be overlooked. It's so important so that there is that, not that we're pointing fingers at each other. If let me catch someone that did something wrong, but hey, let's just understand that any issue in the practice, it's a joint issue that as a team, let's overcome it together. So it's not you did this wrong, you did this wrong, but it's, hey, as a team, our collection percentage is 90%. Let's evaluate together. What could we be doing better? Maybe it's, the hygienist can help with getting intraoral photos, or the assistant, if it's with denials, can relook into the documentation and the templates, making sure that we have the initial placement date. So it's a team effort, and I think if we can build up the culture that we are in this together, it's not a me or you problem, but let's just solve it together and make it a game. I love making things a game, so make it fun, make it a game.
All right, so one last question for you here, and this is going to be a big picture. You've talked about a lot of things, given some great tips just in here, plus in your article. If you could wave the magic wand for RCM in the practice rest of 2024 heading into 2025, what would be your number one wish? Is it the training side? Is it the front versus back working better together? What would be your number one wish?
My number one wish would be the training side. So I think it is so crucial, in the dental practice, a lot of the times it's like a new fire every day that we're just trying to survive. I think it's critical to make time to do the training. You can't perform well without practicing. So that is the one piece of the puzzle that I think is missing right now in some dental offices, is equipping our team members so that everybody's on the same page. Everyone knows the goals we're reaching towards and that we train each other. We cross-train. Cross-training was so big in our office. And that, again, I think that will help build the culture too, that I am here to help you. Let me show you what I do. And let me, as a dental assistant, bring the front office back. Show them what you're doing, and then vice versa. I think is crucial right now.
I love that we're not assuming, we're actually showing. That's a great thing right there. I love that. And Ashley, I know as we teased earlier, you've got some good resources available. So I want to make sure people know about those.
Yes, we do. So we have a ebook, so it's very extensive, just going over the guide to dental billing secrets. So it walks through exactly every part of the insurance verification, insurance billing, and patient billing processes, and quick tips on how to improve those processes. So I'll make sure you have the link in the show notes so that you can have that free resource. Our blog also has tons of free resources. So at withwisdom.com is where you can find all of our free resources. And we'd love for you to check those out and hopefully help your team, work together, collaborate. And then also if you need help with your dental billing, we are always here to help our offices so that they don't have to worry about the insurance headaches and they can focus on the patient experience.
So all the links, again, if you're reading this on Dr. Bicuspid, they're in the article that you're watching this video right now. If you're listening to this on the drbicuspid.com podcast, then make sure you check the show notes as well as go back to that article on Dr. Bicuspid that Ashley wrote because a lot of good tips in there for, again, every member of the team, including that doctor. Ashley, thanks so much. I really appreciate you not only writing the article, but spending a few minutes with me today.
Of course, thank you so much, Kevin, for having me. I always love collaborating with you.
Absolutely. And there'll be plenty more of that in the future. Just get ready. No
Yeah.
doubt. Well, and thanks to all of you for listening to this episode, and thanks to Garfield Refining for sponsoring this episode. And until next time, Kevin Henry, the editor-in-chief for Dr. Bicuspid and the host of the drbicuspid.com podcast, signing off, wishing you nothing but success.